Well, all right. What's happening, Rebels? Nobody's here, so it's going to be a short show. It's going to be a short exercise. But all right, I'm going to get over here to the Restoration Rebels, pull up the live feed so I can see who is commenting and who is not. But yeah, man, let's get to it. No one's here. No one at all. But we're going to start this anyway. We're going to do it anyway. We're going to start this like we start it every single time, starting with the agreements. Here it is. Restoration Rebel Agreement number 1. I will protect the value of my services. Offering free services only serves to erode the value of similar services industry-wide. Agreement number 2, I will practice incredible transparency. I will explain the claim process in detail to my clients. I will not hide pricing details or falsify reports. We're going to talk pricing today. It's going to be hopefully eye-opening. Agreement number 3, I do not believe in competition. The restoration companies in my market are part of my community. I will be an active member of my community. Is it our unbreakable unity that will create the change that we strive for? I just realized I have my earbuds in, but my Bluetooth is not turned on. Let's turn it on, shall we? There we go. Boom. All right, connected. Agreement number 4, I am willing to walk away from any project, client, or contract that is not compatible with my values and stated mission. No relationship is worth losing money, sleep, or my humanity. All right, we're going to talk pricing today. I'm going to ask, well, nobody, because nobody's here, but this is going to go out to the web. It's going to go out to YouTube, whatnot. I'm going to ask you 3 rhetorical questions, and then I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes of what I want to discuss today with myself, evidently. So I'm speaking to the rebels here, speaking to contractors. When you received your contractor's license, did the state call you or tell you or email you and tell you about specific rules that you have to follow when you're doing an insurance claim? Did you get any guidance from the state that these losses, these repair projects, these emergency services have to be rendered in a specific fashion? When you performed your first insurance loss, right? You responded to your first water loss or your first fire. Did the insurance company send you their pricing and estimating guidelines? Obviously, we're not talking about TPA work here, right? TPAs do have estimating guidelines, at least some of them do. Contractor Connection for sure, they got a book, right? They got a book for every single carrier, estimating guidelines. But when you did your first loss, when you weren't signed up with the TPA, did that adjuster or insurance company provide you with their pricing and estimating guidelines? Once again, rhetorical question. Hold on a second. Hey, Google, stop. Hey, Google, stop. Yeah, a little bit peaceful music going on. Okay, the last time you had an adjuster, last time an adjuster told you your price was too high, did they provide a reference or a pricing guide for you to use? Did they refer back to anything other than Xactimate standard pricing? I doubt that they did. I doubt they did. Jennifer Sterling, get in the room. Get in the room. I'm going to try to find my post here on the Rebel page, and that's muted. Where is... I know Joseph Spears is begging to come on, but he's on an airplane or in an airport, right? Sorry to hear that. One of those last minute trips that we all take. We all end up taking. So here we are. We're in the insurance world. Some of us not not willingly, right? We stumbled into this, or we had a client call us that we did some work for, and they had an insurance claim. Maybe you're a home builder, and one of your homes that you built burnt down or washed out with a flood or something like that. So you found yourself here, and you're doing the best you can, and that's all we are all doing. We're doing the best we can, and we're educating ourselves in the best way we know how. And there is, to date, no real class for handling insurance claims. There's all kinds of classes for writing Xactimate estimates. There might be some classes for writing stability estimates. I don't know. There's classes and courses for T&M and things like that. But handling an insurance claim, soup to nuts, haggling with an adjuster, holding the homeowner's hands, navigating insurance policy language, there's just no class for that. So here we are, we're contractors. Hopefully we know what we're doing. Hopefully we're professionals and experts in our field. But we're thrown into it with no reference, really. There's no frame of reference. We're thrown into it. We do the best we can. We do a job. We price it the best we can. And then we get hit. We get hit with, your price is too high. None of my contractors charge me for that. I've never seen anyone, I get it all the time, never seen anyone put that on there. I don't know how many of you guys are using the new actionable insights profile in Xactimate, but it's pretty damn good. It takes a toilet detach and reset from 350 to 750. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff that I've been using this profile for about a month and a half. There's all kinds of stuff that the profile allows, or not, it doesn't allow. It reminds you of what these things are related to these things, and maybe you might want to think about putting these things in. Number one thing it always brings up is when you put a dumpster in, it says, we recommend putting in some sheathing, some OSB or whatnot, underneath the feet of this dumpster so you don't destroy the driveway. Totally legit. But when you start putting that in there, you're going to get those phone calls. You're going to get those nasty grams from adjusters that say, no one charges me for that. And that's an unnecessary line item. So let's talk about pricing. I've been doing more and more appraisals this year. And in those appraisals, I use the best information I have, the best education I've had to date, to inform my appraisal process. And part of that is, okay, we got a couple more people get in the room here. Let's get some people in the room first. Mitch is here. Raymond. So part of my appraisal process is, what is appropriate pricing? And that's a subject that no one wants to touch, especially RIA. Side note, RIA started this chat today on Facebook. They should know better. So they started a chat for everyone who's a member. I'm a member, so I got on there. And I mentioned that we're having a Restoration Rebel Roundtable today. And somebody, I'm not going to name names, said this is not a rebel group. No, no, it ain't. And one thing you cannot talk about in an RIA meeting is pricing. They're scared to death of it. But part of the reason that we are being pushed down and held down in our pricing or repricing or custom pricing efforts is the fact that we have leaders in this industry that are afraid to go touch the subject. So here we are. We're going to touch the subject. We're going to get up and personal in this subject. Pricing. contractor pricing. I started this with 3 rhetorical questions. And the answer to those rhetorical questions was no, there is no book, there is no standard, there is no guideline that you receive when you decide to do insurance work as a contractor that tells you how to price your stuff, how to scope your stuff. So let me get some comments here. Mitch, where are you at on the spectrum of pricing before I go deep into my conversations with these attorneys this year I had this week?
So I just kind of jumped in there. Sorry, I was a little late. So right, pricing man. As far as what Xactimate talks about, or
no, pricing your
retail company,
pricing your services, pricing your services.
As retail company, I can set my prices at whatever I need to set my prices at to be a profitable company. It's against the trade laws to dictate what a person can and cannot charge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I know what it takes. I've used the RIA calculator for that, but I was just going through a project today where I was doing some vinyl siding and using Xactimate, and the materials pricing is off. So went into components. I got my materials bid. I put my margin markup on that, then I added it to my Xactimate.
How do you determine what your margin is?
We go by our company overhead,
mm-hmm.
Right? And we add in. I personally go, what's my overhead? That's just one aspect of it. I got to be able to cover my overhead and make a profit. And so my margins are at that we set the minimums for reconstruction and repairs. Everybody's a little bit different, so you calculate that out to meet those margins.
So let me put a margin in your let me suggest a margin so we don't have to talk about your specific margin. I'm using a roughly 35% gross margin. 35% gross profit. I use margin and profit are the same thing when you talk about gross. So 35% gross profit is what I found is reasonable and is what it was expected of me when I was a project manager, estimator, running projects. If I didn't meet or beat that 35% gross number, I didn't bonus on that particular job. So that's the number I've used and continue to use. So if you need to make 35%, is profit and overhead included in that 35% margin that you're hoping to get?
Well, it will be if it's gross. So, however, for me, that's a minimum.
Yes.
So
minimum
35 is a minimum. I worked for a flooring company in the Midwest, and our minimum for the company was 55%.
Mm-hmm.
That was our minimum gross profit margin.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't meet that, then you didn't bonus out. And everybody's like, "What? Are you kidding?" Hey, go buy some windows at 400% markup.
Go to REI and buy a
1,000% markup.
Yep. Oh. So yeah, I went down a rabbit hole. I had 3 appraisals last week with the same opposing appraiser and the same umpire. So we were able to go bang, 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 3 in a row. At the end of the day, we've been negotiating these appraisals for a couple months now. And at the end of the day, it came down to we had the exact same scope. I had the different pricing. So we had to talk about what is an appropriate price. And at the end of the day, what is an appropriate markup? Because when you talk about margin, you're talking about what markup to use. And if you need a 35% margin, that is not a 35% markup, right? Mitch, I'm sure you understand this deeply. So let me ask you, Mitch, if you need a 35% margin, what do you need to use as a markup?
I'm trying to follow you there. Sorry, some text messages. So,
That's right. That's right.
and so maybe ask the question again. I'm sorry about that.
If you need a 35% margin, what kind of markup do you have to put on it to achieve that?
Well, I have this little nifty markup calculator, margin calculator. Okay.
So do I.
So that's what I use to get my markup. My markup is completely different than my margin.
Yes, it is.
So if I have $1,000 and I want a 35% margin, my markup is 53%.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And everybody confuses that markup with 10% profit, 10%.
Adjusters and claims managers, and as it turns out, umpires and appraisers' brains start to melt when I explain to them that I took the Xactimate cost database and I factored it. Well, this particular, what I've been doing up until this point, and now I'm changing. I'm going to tell you, I'll tell everyone how I've changed. What I was doing is I was factoring the entire Xactimate price list by 30%. It was a 1.3 factor because Xactimate is a cost estimating system. It does not estimate my overhead and does not estimate my profit. It is on contractors, and Xactimate will tell you this. It's on contractors to accommodate, to build in the appropriate margins for their business and use the appropriate markups. So what I've been doing to this point is doing a 1.3 multiplier on the entire Xactimate price list. And then I write an estimate and I add 10 and 10. So 30 plus 10 and 10, 10 and 10 is a 20% markup. 10 and 10 gets you what for a margin, Mr. Stringer?
17.
16, 16.6, 17
yeah.
ish. Yes.
Yeah.
So 10 and 10, if the only thing you're using in Xactimate, and that seems to be the Bible, right? That's the thing. We're all using Xactimate. If you're only using 10 and 10, you are building in a 16% margin. You're not making 20%, as every adjuster in the land likes to tell you, oh, you're making 20%. You're not, because Xactimate is a cost estimating system. It's pretty damn good. You're making 16% gross margin. And if you know your business can't survive on 16%, your business survives on 35 plus, you have to build in a different markup. So that's what I've been doing. I've been taking the entire price list times 30%, and using 10 and 10 for a total of 50%, a 1.5 markup.
Are you doing that inside your line items or
no,
like
I'm doing it globally. I'm doing it globally. It's not even a global change. If you go to pricing.exactware.whatever, there's a link. The price list module in Xactimate will allow you to put on that factor.
Correct.
And on across 3 different areas: materials, equipment, and labor. And
yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So
yeah, so and it'll allow you to do that. And then what you do is an actual tool to do that. They built it for a reason, and I'm sure it came up in court somewhere, or they anticipated it coming up in court somewhere. And Xactware is very good at a lot of things, and one of those things is keeping their ass out of court. They do not want to put themselves in a position of price fixing. Correct. So I had a conversation with an attorney. I work a fair bit amount of what I call litigation support and expert witness stuff. Litigation support usually leads into expert witness. So you get chosen as the expert early on in the case before it even goes to trial, and you work it. So in my this one particular file we were talking about, I used a factored price list, 1.3. And I told my attorney that this is what I did. There's a reason our pricing is different from Safeco's pricing. And the number one reason is I factored mine and they didn't. So they had me explain it to them, what I did. And I explained exactly what I did. Well, I just did 30% factor plus a 10 to 10. And I wrote a paper on it, so I sent him the paper. He called me back later in the afternoon. He said, "Thank you for ruining my entire afternoon. I went deep dive on your paper, and here's my feedback." And his feedback was, if you find yourself in a position trying to explain the difference between margin and markup to a jury, you're going to lose, right? And especially if you're using a markup on the price list, and then you're using another markup on the estimate, it's going to get confusing, and you're going to lose. It's too technical, it's too confusing, and it could be perceived as, since you're factoring the price list and then you essentially burying that factor in the price list, and then you're using another factor on the end of the estimate, you could be seen as, oh, you're trying to hide. You're trying to, well, not gouge, but you're trying to hide part of that markup. And I can't argue with that. That's legit. I mean, there's my number I was going for was 50%, and I was hiding 30% of it because I was burying it. So I said, well, what's my better option? Should I just put the entire 50% markup that I know I need, and I can justify it every day of the week? Do I just do that a 1.5 factor on the price list and I don't use 10 and 10? And he said, no, actually the opposite. You should not factor the price list, but you should use an appropriate factor on every estimate you write. And I said, well, that's going to be a 25 and a 25, or a 27 and a 27. And he said, yes, it is. And right when he said that, I heard in the future, when I start doing this, I heard people's brains exploding. Because can you imagine, you write an estimate, and on the end of that estimate, instead of 10 and 10, you use 27 and 27. People are going to lose their shit. But I'm arguing, and I'm arguing today, and I will continue to argue, people need to lose their shit. We need to have this argument. We need to have this uncomfortable conversation, because in the absence of any markup, it is absolute price fixing on the part of carriers demanding that we adhere to Xactimate cost pricing.
Which is historical, by the way. It's nothing current.
Well,
historical price list.
It's historical-ish. No, their pricing is, I mean, it's behind, right?
Yeah,
their pricing department has to catch up.
Yeah, they gain it off of stuff that's already been passed.
Right.
Past experience, past information, stuff that is not current. And I mean, and it's very evident, being here in the Clarkston, Washington, Lewiston area. I get a lumber pricing index from 2 different stores, and they don't even compare. Just the raw materials, they don't compare. So I found that to be very interesting, and while you have to use this, I'm like, I can't. That's not accurate. You
can't, because they can't tell us what to charge, A, and B, they can't force us to take on projects that we know on the outside are going to be unprofitable. That is the unfortunate reality that most TPA contractors, most vendor contractors find themselves in. There is a certain portion of the projects that they are forced to take on every year that are unprofitable, and they know they're not going to make any money before they even go to the job site. Because of these things, they're not able to change the pricing. They're not able to build in an appropriate markup to achieve an appropriate margin. So where we're at as an industry is you're either, Joe, great question. What other industry has to disclose their markup amount or percentage to a customer?
Well, insurance companies do. So right now we're seeing across the country, all of these carriers that have been charging about $1,200 to $1,300 a unit per vehicle per year for $1 million limit. And they are now coming forward and saying, your premium is going to increase 25% or actually double, because now they're trying to get $3,500 to $4,000 a vehicle per year. So they're disclosing it. They're doing it. It's just, I don't think anybody is comfortable with saying, hey, by the way, next time we work together, expect everything to be twice the price. It's not an easy conversation. The only way I have found that I can do it is I say, I have really good news and I have really bad news. And I'll say, your premium went up. And then they'll be like, you're kidding. And I'll be like, no. And then I'll say, yeah, it's going to be 50 grand. And they'll be like, you're kidding. And I'll be like, yeah, it's only 31. Like, I don't know how else to do it.
Well, there is, yeah, everyone needs to look at their business, understand their numbers, and then take a good hard look at the pricing. You know, it can be always argued, and it came up in the conversation I had with this umpire and this appraiser this week. It's like, well, there's plenty of money built in. I mean, how many times have we heard that? There's plenty of money built in. You know, all these guys driving around brand new F-350s. And I said, that's great. What about the guy that went out of business yesterday?
Well, what about the guy that's flying that Lear jet around? Let's talk about him with the $27 million bonus.
Yeah, executives, insurance executives, making $10-20 million bonuses. Yeah, let's talk about that. At the end of the day, every dollar they take away from a contractor, they're taking that dollar out of the local economy. And that's been my argument for a long time is the fact that, I mean, they took away 10 and 10, right? We allowed them to take away a 10 and 10 markup on certain things, mitigation and roofing, right? That 20% is billions of dollars that should be spent in a local economy, in a local market that is no longer. That goes to somebody's Learjet. Exactly right. So then no one has ever been successfully what's the word? No one has been, I can't think of the word. No one's gone to jail for using a markup, right? No one's been fined for using a markup. What they've been fined for is trying to build in a margin somewhere else. That what they've gone to jail for is trying to hide things and bury margins and come up with tricky ways to make that margin that are dishonest. And the number one thing that contractors have done and some continue to do is the whole 2 invoice game for subcontractors. They know they're not going to make enough money on 10 and 10, just marking up a contractor's sub bid 10 and 10. So they go to the sub and say, hey, sub, give me this, give me a bid, give me your bid. But then what I'm going to pay you is going to be 10 to 20% less than that. And we're going to call it an early pay discount or whatever. That's what that guy in Colorado went to prison for is that is fraudulent. You are hiding it. But if you're honest with yourself, if you're honest with your company and your owner, if you're honest with the insurance company and say, hey, I've got to make a 35% gross margin. Xactimate is a cost system. It doesn't accommodate for any of this. I need to factor every estimate I write by 25 and 25, or 22 and 22, or 20 and 20, and at least double, right? At least double. And even if it was 20 and 20, right? It gives us 40% markup. It gives us a 28% gross margin built in. That gives us a fighting chance to go get the rest, get the other 7% that we got to get. But at 20%, if we're starting at 16% gross margin, we don't even have a fighting chance. And with the attorney that I had this conversation with told me, yeah, we're forcing people to lie. The industry is forcing contractors to lie about the numbers because they can't make money at the face value. The claim at face value, they can't make money on. They've either got to shave, they got to shave sub costs, they got to shave labor costs, they got to shave scope, or they shave quality. And that's the number one thing is we see, how many houses have Rebels showed up to that are left wet by the vendor Well, the vendor doesn't care because he didn't get paid to dry the building. He got paid for 3 days. He got paid for 3 days and he's out. If he spends a 4th day on there, that's out of his pocket. Why would he do that? The industry has forced them to be dishonest and lower the quality of their services. So, Aaron, you're in the room. What do you got to say on this? Unmute yourself. I want to hear Aaron White.
I'm just here for the party.
Right on.
We're driving back from Florida, so I was like, perfect. I'll actually have a time to sit. I can like just put it on my phone. So I don't deal with a lot of margins and costs and stuff with our company. I let Drew and Matt do that. So
Sure.
I'm just here to listen to the conversation. I don't have a ton to say. I know it's getting ridiculous. I think the last 5 claims that we did were all sent to Code Blue.
Oh,
So
Code Blue's the worst.
At home. We didn't do any insurance work in Florida. So
Okay.
yeah. So that's
Well,
getting
what
ridiculous as far as the margin stuff, but that's going to be a whole nother topic and an animal on itself, because we're getting
what
aggravated.
What I do know about your guys' operation is you don't use Xactimate, right? And that's
no, we do.
well, not
Yeah,
exclusively. No, you guys have your own pricing, don't you?
Yeah. We have our own pricing on some. We do. We use the Xactimate system, and then yes, we customize price.
Yeah, and that's what we have to do.
But
right? That's what we have to do.
That's a Matt thing. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. All right. Well, hey, keep it between the lines. I'll let you go. I appreciate you. It's so fun. It's so fun for me to sit back and watch when these big events happen. And I watch my LinkedIn feed. I watch my Facebook feed. Some of y'all are on Instagram, so I see that. And I love it. It warms my heart to see you guys packing up all your gear and hitting the road. Because I know that you guys are going to go down there and do great work, and you're going to make some good money. And it warms my heart to see rebels going down there and making money, doing good things, helping people, and making money while you're at it. I just love it.
We actually,
you guys have a fair amount of equipment too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on what you consider a fair amount of equipment, but we do have desiccants and generators and a big trailer full of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it just depends. I see
did I see you guys are bringing back a Trailblazer? Yeah. You're not supposed to bring back extra vehicles when you go to Florida.
Well, so here's the deal though, like you have to be resourceful. So while we were down there, we needed to get to the island, and you couldn't get there other than boats. So we bought a boat while we were down there. And then
of course you did.
We needed side-by-sides to get around on the island because you couldn't drive over there. So we bought a Polaris Ranger while we were down there and had it barged over to the island.
Correct.
Yeah, so it was a crazy event, but you gotta do it. So
what was your guys' takeaway? I mean, you were down there for 4 weeks, 5 weeks?
We were down there for about 6.5, came home for Thanksgiving, and then we went back down this week to finish picking up our stuff, because obviously we bought things while we were down there, so we didn't have enough to get it all back. So
what's the status of Florida now? Where I heard from a guy today. I mean, it sounds like it's still jacked, but everyone's gonna wait till the new year, and then it's gonna be appraisal after appraisal after appraisal. What's the status now? It sounds like it's not even starting to get fixed.
No, I mean, there's reconstruction stuff going on, but yeah, we stayed so out of the loop because we only did cash pay. And we did primarily did residential flood. We did we did 2 commercial jobs that were from wind driven rain, roof damage, whatever. But primarily our work was floodwater on Sanibel Island. So we did all cash pay, half
Nice.
half down to get on our waiting list, and then half when we were done.
Wow.
So we
What would you
it
say
worked out.
your, I don't know, you
Yeah.
don't probably don't do the billing side of it. What would you say your average size loss was? Your average invoice out?
Probably 25.
Yeah. Cash. Wow. Okay. So now those customers, those clients, excuse me, they're going to submit your invoice to their insurance company and NFIP and
Correct.
FEMA and
Right.
try to get reimbursed that 25. Any
That's
idea
correct.
how successful they're being at that?
Not super successful. A couple of people have just kind of said, look, we know we might not be reimbursed. So, like we've had a couple that have said, can you give us a little more detailed invoice on what you did, just so that we have a little more detail to turn in. So we've done that for them.
Sure.
So it's, I mean, I don't even know that any of them have gained any ground as far as receiving any money. So, but
is everyone just that far behind? The carriers are just that far behind the 8 ball. They're just not responding. They're not sending adjusters. What's the story there?
Well, so most of the jobs that we did were just the flood. So it was FEMA only. Like they didn't have any insurance coverages for that.
Right. They weren't carrying flood insurance. Or they weren't carrying. Okay.
They had flood insurance through FEMA, but not through their homeowners insurance. They had to purchase it through the whatever other thing. I did have one customer who had flood and wind driven rain damage in the house, and the insurance company pretty much denied every bit of wind driven rain in the house, and he got nothing there. And then he stilted. So technically everything below isn't supposed to be finished anyways. So
hey, Aaron, I have a question.
Yep.
Hey, Aaron, I know that down in Florida, they started doing those homeowner deductible policies. Did you find a lot of people that realized that 2% of $200,000 worth of damage was going to be hard to come up with that deductible? And it was
it's not a percentage of the loss. It's a percentage of the value of the house.
Yeah, like I said, we really didn't do much. We really didn't do any insurance work, so we didn't even talk to them about their insurance. I mean, they knew that it was, they knew it was cash, and so we just stayed away from those conversations because we didn't want to steer anyone in the wrong direction. We did do a small residential that was roof damage, and we only did restoration, water damage, restoration, whatever. We didn't do any kind of repairs, but we had one customer who did have a higher deductible and didn't realize it once, we got going, but it was a small loss in a small house. So I think he thought it was 2,000 and ended up being 4. So we didn't experience anything where anybody was like blown away. Most of these people knew that they probably weren't going to get much money out of it. And then two of our customers sold their houses gutted before we even came home.
They sold them. Woo.
Right. Yeah.
Sold them as is. I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of capital going down there and trying to buy houses for pennies on a dollar.
I said, well, pennies on the dollar is what you would think, but a 1,800 square foot house on the island, completely everything gutted except for the ceiling, drywall, they were selling anywhere between 600,000 and 700,000.
Get out of
So
here.
no, like within days, like
And then
on the
what is
market,
it?
and it was
So they're
gone.
just buying the dirt at that point.
Yeah, the lots 5 years ago were selling for like 350,000. So
Ooh.
they basically come in, and now they have a house that they, for 150, you can remodel it however you want. So most of
Whoa.
the houses on the street 2 years ago, one house in that neighborhood sold for 1.6 in June, and then they pretty much lost everything.
Gone. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's bad timing.
Yeah. So, I mean, pricing down there, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, we're a smaller company, so we had less overhead. So, we could adjust our pricing accordingly, which helped us out a little bit. As far as some customers that were like, holy crap, their prices are expensive, but it worked out. It worked out good for us. But, the same thing as back home, you have to figure out what your costs are.
Yes, you
You
do.
can figure out what you can do the job for. And we were able to do the job because it didn't cost us thousands and thousands of dollars to mobilize. So we went down with 200, let's see, we took 250 fans, like 27 DHUs, 2 generators, a bunch of air scrubbers, and then just tools. So we had both our generators on jobs. We didn't take any desiccants with us. So
yeah, I mean, when you're doing full gut or at least half gut, desiccant's kind of a moot point. You just got to get it out and stabilize it.
Yeah, we probably didn't use half our equipment as far as drying stuff, because by the time you do that, they're starting to dry as you're trying to come back around to dry it. So
yeah, and you're tearing out the nasties when you do the demo anyway.
Right. Yep.
So
cool. It was good. But
well, Aaron, I
yeah,
appreciate you.
That's
Appreciate
why
you chiming in, man.
That's why I stayed muted, because I'm like, I'm just gonna listen to the money stuff, because I don't. Luckily, I let them fight that fight. I like producing, and I let them deal with the money stuff.
If I know Drew at all, he doesn't fight. He's going to tell him where to send it. He's going to tell him where to put it.
So it's funny, because with the dynamic of the three of us now, Matt is actually the guy who does, I would say, 95% of our Xactimate and billing. Drew handles a lot of our MIT billing, but Matt does the reconstruction stuff, and Matt is the one who would go round and round with them. Like, it's been pretty funny, but Matt has now superseded Drew. So how Drew is with Xactimate, and now Matt is like the guru. So he knows how to figure all the different numbers out and stuff like that. So yep. So I'm just listening as a drive to gain some knowledge. So y'all keep it up. Will
do. Thanks, man. So I want to put up a meme that I created. It's Bill Loveland. He was speaking at an RIA event a couple years ago now, and talking about pricing, talking about margins and pricing and markup. And my takeaway from that hour-long conversation with he and Ed Cross was this quote. He said, "You've got to have the nerve to charge what you need to charge." Speaking to contractors, speaking about Xactimate. And that's what I am going to reiterate to you now, and to everyone else who is going to watch this. You need to charge. You've got to have the nerve to charge what you need to charge. You need to charge appropriately to keep your lights on, to pay your crews, to pay yourself, to reinvest in your company, to grow your company after it's seen success. I mean, you can do 1 million jobs, but if you don't make any money on those jobs, you're no better off than if you did 0 jobs, right? I speak to a contractor a week who says, I have to stay in the TPAs. I have to stay in the TPAs. I have to do this work. And we talk about it. It's like, well, you're losing money. You're losing money. You're not only you're not making a profit, but you're actually going in the negative. It's a net negative when you take these jobs with fixed pricing and fixed estimating guidelines and no supervision allowed, no service call allowed, and all this stuff. You're losing money, and you can't lose money and you can't lose money on every job and try to make it up on volume. And the argument always is, well, I got to keep my guys busy. I got to keep my guys busy. And I said, well, you're better off keeping your guys, paying your guys to come to your shop, vacuum the carpets, clean the trucks, put a new roof on your shop. I don't care. You're better off keeping your guys busy and keeping them on payroll. Oh, hell, pay them to stay home rather than mobilize them to a job where you're going to increase your risk of injury. You're going to increase your risk that something's going to go wrong. And you're going to take on the expense of buying the equipment, buying the materials, doing the job, warrantying the job, and you can't charge appropriately for it, so you're losing money. You're better off sending your guys home and sending them a paycheck. That's what TPA work has turned into nowadays. So I'm going to tell everyone now, again, not just the 4 people in the room and the 3 people watching on Facebook, but everyone out there, you have to have the nerve to charge what you need to charge in order to make appropriate profit to continue your business. That is it. And if that is a 20 and 20 markup at the end of every invoice and every estimate you write, it is what it is. I know for me, for my consulting practice and for my litigation practice, I'm going to start putting in 22.5 or 25.5 because I know my target markup is 55%. I've got to get there somehow. And I can't rely on this ephemeral, this made up thing that there's plenty of money built in. You know, where's your profit? Oh, it's built into the line items. No mofo to date has been able to show me where any profit is built into any line item in Xactimate. They always go to the labor. Well, you're not paying your guys $75 an hour. You're right. I'm not. And $75 an hour is not the wage. That's a fully loaded rate coming out of Xactimate. And if you really understood, Mr. Adjuster, how workers' comp works, how liability insurance works, how payroll taxes work, you would understand that $75 an hour retail rate is probably not enough. And it's definitely not enough if you're not allowed to mark it up at all. So that 75 probably needs to be closer to 95. You know, and we know this as contractors. When's the last time you got a plumber or an electrician to go out to a job? What did that cost you? You know, you can have an electrician come out to change an outlet. That turns into $450 real quick. You're saying, well, that's a $17 outlet. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that electrician's not going to lose money on that job. That electrician's going to pay his guys appropriately. An electrician has a lot of liability to cover. You know, and Jennifer, you know more than anyone else here, you get one injury on a job, your workers' comp rate doubles. You can almost not afford.
You're missing the part. It doubles for 4 years until your
4 years
falls off.
I'm sure you see guys that just say, you know what, forget it. I'm out. I'm not going to continue my business because I can't afford to.
Well, we just had the other day a guy who had an injured worker in a vehicle, which an auto accident is a workers' comp claim. Lots of people don't understand that. But it turned out to be a $13,000 claim. It was a not at fault accident. So his workers' comp renewed about 2 months later, and there was a $13,000 increase. They didn't say it was due to that claim because it's not supposed to count for that year, the year prior.
But it
But
did.
those carriers go ahead and they go, oh, well, that's a debit. That's a debit. That's a debit charge. They don't say
Mm.
why. But yeah, they're gonna get their money as much as they can. So,
100%.
and if you're
And
looking at paying a guy that's in the janitorial class code 9014, some of you people are paying $4 per 100. Every time you pay the guy $100, you're paying that workers' comp rate. Some of
Mhm.
you are paying $4. Some of you are paying $14. Some of you are paying $25 per every $100 you give that guy.
yeah, and that
Wow.
goes nowhere. That's not
Goes-
going into a
it
401k
dissipates.
somewhere.
Oh, it
It's
dissipates.
gone. It's a cost. It's a cost. And I don't know exactly what kind of mod rate Xactimate builds in to their labor, but it ain't enough.
No.
It ain't enough. So we've got to have the nerve to charge what we need to charge. And Brandon says, be brave. Yeah, be brave. Don't be brave. From my perspective, and yes, it's easy for me to say because I'm not a real contractor, right? I only work for contractors. But from my perspective, it's not bravery. It's survival. You need to charge what you need to charge in order to survive. And if you can't do that, then why are you in business? You know, if you can't charge appropriate, if you're losing money on every job, what's the point? What is the point? Just because you want to see the dollars come into your account and go right back out of your account? You know, it's, you know, I believe, I really do. I believe that a major GC in the restoration space is going to go out of business. They're going to go banco soon this year. I don't know who it is. I've got my favorites. I'm not going to name names, but somebody's going to go out because they've gotten so big. What the adjusters don't understand is the bigger business you run, the bigger overhead you have to carry. Your overhead doesn't go down. It's not like economies of scale. Economies of scale don't work when you're building a business. You get bigger your business, the more overhead you have to cover. And
Well,
I've got clients with 35% overhead as a percentage of their overall revenue. And you've got what these vendors are. A lot of these vendors are mom and a pop or a man in a van with a fan. You know, their overhead is 10% because they're working out of their garage. They're the ones that can work for these rates. Everyone else has to mark shit up. Mitch, you had something to say?
Oh, yeah, kind of the indicator of what's going to happen. You know, some of the areas, the Treasure Valley and Boise,
Mm-hmm.
their largest builder, the guy that builds like all these clone homes, that's what I call them, the clone homes. He shut everything down in last August and said he's not building anything until after the first year. And I think he was waiting to see if maybe the elections might do something. The economy is that bad. I mean, well, that's an indicator right there that everything's sliding downhill pretty darn quick.
Yeah.
It,
Oh, shit hadn't even got real yet.
Oh no.
You know, we're in a preview period. And those of us in the know, I mean, those of us in this room right now, I'd like to say we're a little bit better informed and we're a little bit more forward thinking, but the vast majority of the world doesn't even look past next week, let alone into the future far enough to really make good, solid, strategic decisions. But it's, you know, I see a major restorer going out of business next year because the margins they're not allowed to charge will catch up with them. And they're just going to say, you know what? We're done. We are out. Now, the alternative to that is to nut up, woman up, and charge an appropriate markup for your business. I'm not saying don't use Xactimate. I mean, that's one way, right? That's one way. Change your entire structure. Don't use Xactimate. Don't play the game. But as a lot of us have discovered trying to go down that road is it really builds in a lot of friction and a lot of complication. to trying to settle an insurance claims when you can't do a true apples to apples comparison. I would prefer to use Xactimate because I know State Farm's using Xactimate, and I can show them, I can just put it up on a screen and say, you missed this and this and this and this and this, right? It's
Custom
just,
price list?
well, no,
They have
Xactimate
a
with the custom price list.
list.
No, State Farm does. Yeah. And it's
Yes.
lower.
Yes. Yeah.
And
So
it's lower.
why can they have a price list and you can't? Why do TPA people say that you can't have a custom price list?
Well, because at the end of the day, the TPA is going to be the scapegoat.
yeah,
the
they hold
TPA
like water. That's fine.
You hear this, that the TPAs are carrying the carrier's water. Is that the right way to say it? Yeah. And this whole, there's a, what's the guy's name out of Florida, the attorney that had some IAs on talking about how the TPAs are
Horowitz.
playing games.
Harold,
they were,
Harold or whatever. David.
I forget his name. But I mean, I watched some YouTube videos the last couple of days of he's got IAs that did work, handled claims in Florida that submitted estimates in photo reports that were being doctored by the TPA. The TPA was going through and deleting photos of damage and trying to, well, not trying to, they were. Well, yes, it is. But guess who gets caught for that fraud? Not the carrier. The carrier is going to go, oh, well, that wasn't us. That was our TPA. The TPA did us nonsense. There's going to be some TPAs they're going to catch. They're going to go out. They're going to get caught. And I think they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law because it is fraudulent. And that's what these IAs were standing up saying, hey, I submitted my estimate. It was a $400K estimate. And my photo report was, documented to the nines. It was legit $400K, and it came back out of collaboration at 150, or it came back out of collaboration. I put in to replace the roof, and they said the TPA told me if the roof isn't 75% or more damaged, we're going to deny the claim. We're going to no pay it. So there's some nonsense going on, but the carriers got to know what's going on, and they got to know that they have a shill, they have plausible deniability because the TPA is doing it, not us. But back to the pricing.
Yeah, but I got to interject here. When you say the liability is transferred over to the TPA, if you look at the COI requirements that the contractors have to provide to the TPAs and how they have to indemnify the TPAs, any of their managers, even any of their officers, anybody that's affiliated with a TPA or who, they list every damn person you could probably think of. And then they require the contractor to indemnify them with hold harmless agreements, waivers of subrogation, primary
it's
wording.
a big fat circle
So when
jerk.
our guys are out there trying to get on these programs and they reach out to their brokers asking for a COI, thinking it's just a piece of paper showing proof of insurance, it's way more than proof of insurance. It's saying, hey, no matter what happens, I'll be the fall guy.
If you're naming a named insured, that's exactly what you're doing. And that's exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
So don't ask for them, you guys. Don't ask for those all the time. And be smart. Read your darn subcontractor agreements and line item that crap out. And then ask your broker to give a COI. And don't give COIs out like you're so proud to make you look legit. Like when you give out a COI, or those folks ask to be additionally insured and they ask for special wording, you're dying to write a check.
Yeah, you're going to be writing that check at the end of the day. Because you're responsible.
What do? You make them just a certificate holder. So all you're doing is giving them proof that you have insurance.
Good point. Great point. Great point. So, all right, we're 2:00. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to end by saying this. No contractor has ever been found as fraudulent. No contractor has gone to jail for using appropriate pricing. They've gone to jail for trying to hide their pricing. No contractor has gone to jail for using a markup. Now, the first people out there that do this are going to get really abused. And I want you to know right now, I will go to court for you for free. I will testify for you for free if you get called on the carpet for using an appropriate markup. I'll do that. I'll do that anywhere in the country. I will fly. I will fly anywhere in the country and give a deposition regarding, I'm going to do it right now. I don't know what I just did. I just promised
I
that,
don't know what you just did.
but
Jeez.
I'm going to stand by it.
Okay.
If you
And I
use,
will do that.
I will do it. I will go to Idaho. I will do this.
They have to pay
because-
for that. I'm gonna help it. I'm gonna help Andy out here. You have to pay for his airfare and his accommodations.
And
Okay.
get out of here. Wait, look at that.
There.
Yeah, that collaboration with the insurance company already. Look
Yeah.
at
See,
There.
hey, wait. I'm on your side. Okay, for Andy's sake, he will
But-
come and give his professional services at no cost. But you
Yes.
will have to absorb the flying and the
You got to pay the
airfare.
freight. You got to pay the freight.
that. Maybe you let the girls stick up for you. Look at that.
That's right.
So,
Trying to use that.
That's
razor.
this is how strongly I believe in this. This is how important I believe this is to our industry, to the viability of the entire restoration industry. It is important that we are able to make a good living. And we can't make a good living if we're not allowed to mark up the cost database pricing coming out of Xactimate. And I'm not even going to mention Symbility because that is a shit show. It is a sham. And that is the only reason that the contractors, Safeco is going to Symbility because they reduced the price list by 30% across the board. And they're trying to play it off as real legitimate. And it ain't.
Shame.
It ain't.
Shameful.
It's a huge shame. It's a huge shame. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. It's been exciting. I
Awesome.
may have committed myself to something I may regret later, but I'm not going to go back on it.
right.
I've committed. So,
We
all right,
heard
we'll
it,
see you
man.
guys. We'll see you guys
And
next
God bless
week.
everybody this week. Stay safe and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. God bless.
Bye.